Okay, so Fishonella. Another quick video. So the last video was on fitting this Lucas C39 version 2 dynamo instead of an aftermarket one. That when it fails or wears out, you literally have to throw in the bin. So at least with this, you can pull them apart, you can get bearings, you can get bushings and all of that. So that's fitted. We've worked out that it works. We've probably noticed from the last video that it's chewing up the front. The pulley on the front is chewing up the fan belt. So kind of an issue. Well, what I'm after doing is realising that this pulley, the nut that holds it on and the washer, the spring washer is completely compressed. It wasn't springing at all. And even though the nut is tight, this pulley was going back and forward. So I'm after realising that. I'm after putting a big chunky spring washer and a flat washer behind it, and the nut in front of the whole lot. And now when it's tightened up, it is actually holding that pulley, I think, in. So what I do is I get a straight edge and I put it down over the front crank pulley there, and then I look here and I work out if we're in line. So you can see that's fairly in line there. I mean, you're talking 6 or maybe 6/1000 of an inch. So I have this screwdriver under the back here, and when I poke that in a bit, it lifts it a little bit more and it helps line that up a bit more. So with that in mind, what I'll do is I'll get my 1/2 inch socket and spanner and we'll start nipping up this back nut and bolt here, just enough to get a bit of a grip, so that when we lift up this, better still, I'll hang the ratchet socket, ratchet spanner on that. So a bit of a twist on that and tighten, and that should just help, as we saw there, line up that pulley just to get the last bit out of it. Keeping pressure on the screwdriver and just trying to get this to hold. We have the front one loose because we want to make the adjustments in the back, of course, the angle, and there is a bit of leeway there to make an adjustment on it. The holes are a bit wider than the bolts, like. So we'll try that again. Sit it there, and we can see it is fairly, very close there. So it should be good. I do find some of these are very fussy, especially with these fan belts that are wider than the pulley. They are wider. So it is going to chew a bit, but we could hear that it wasn't sounding like it was very happy. It was making kind of a bit of racket. So I think it could also have been the fact that that pulley wasn't on tight. Babe, stack in a row. But we'll work out now when we start it. Now, one thing I've realised, there's that front one. It's too tight. So let us go back and check that again. I thought that was loose. We may as well do this now. We have everything here. Do it right. May as well. A little bit tight with this underslung is off. Not alright. Now, see the dynamo after dropping there. So in with screwdriver, and if you give it a twist, you can see that it brings it the top edge forward and the bottom in. So we're going to shove that in there a little bit. Might move the camera a little bit better. Hopefully it won't flash with the work lamp being beside it. It sometimes starts kind of a flashing thing, and I know now maybe that's better lighting there. It's hard to get the lighting right. Okay, so you see it is off there a little bit. It's touching the bottom there and the top. It isn't. So if we give that a twist, see another issue here. How we're going to be able to do a whole lot of twisting if this thing is here. And these things actually put a fair bit of pressure. We'll take him out of the equation, fold it up out of the way. Try and get this thing running through, because there's no precision engineering on this. There is a new bearing in the front, fitted that, and I do want that bearing to be, I don't want it to be under unnecessary pressure, because I didn't take the time to try and sort this out. I remember spending a fairly long amount of time on the gold belly. We were working on the TVO on the 35 there a while back, trying to get the dynamo. Now that'll probably give us a bit more purchase on it there now. Okay, straight edge in and down across the front pulley there till you get the two surfaces. Okay, so it's close enough. I'm going to give it a tap of a hammer. We are loose at the back here, aren't we? Did I loosen that? If I didn't, I need to. This time I'm just going to go tap that in, see will that hold where we want it to be. Yeah, it's a little bit off. It's not bad. It is only a dynamo pulley, like it's not. Okay, so if we could get it up a little bit higher, it'd be better. We'll loosen that off a little bit. Take out our screwdriver and try and see can we get that in. Maybe a little bit more further towards the back here. I do have my earth bolt there, so I might have to change screwdrivers if I feel I will, because that's too wide. I'll try a slightly narrower one here. See will that do the trick, just to get the right one in. Keep a bit of pressure on it and do that test again. Yeah, it's not too bad now. I can't really get a rock in the ruler. Okay, so with that bit of pressure on there, I'm going to hang the ratchet spanner on the bolt. Hopefully it'll stay. Put the socket on, tighten things up. Ratchet spanner's going the wrong way, that's alright, we'll swap in. So make our adjustment at the back here. Lock that in. That's our angle adjustment. That should hold that. We'll do another quick check. See how it's looking. As you can see, it's not bad. That shouldn't be causing issues. It really shouldn't. We'll move our camera back so I can get in there and give that a tighten up. Might move the light a bit more forward. It's hard to win with the light now. Right. When these are wrong, they're at the wrong angle, they just make such an annoying sound. And if you have a nice low quiet tick over, all you hear is this thing going around. Not nice. So it is worth putting the time into getting it lined up. Okay. I've made sure that all of these nuts and bolts are all 1/2 inch or 13mm, whatever, so that you only need a socket and a spanner, or 2 spanners, whatever. You only need the same size. Just makes things easier, because it is one of these parts that very rarely fit just once and get it right straight away. There's usually always a bit of playing around, especially with them pulleys. This isn't a genuine pulley, it dates to 1951. If I'm not mistaken, these are all dated. I've looked at the other ones and there seems to be a date on them. Maybe they're a Lucas pulley, I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me. But I don't like fan belts being too tight on these, especially with that big wide fan belt. It is only turning. The dynamo, if it's slipping, you'll know it's slipping, because if you're revving your engine and your ammeter arrow will not be showing charge. So that is about that. Everything's nipped up. We'll give it a start and see if it's still making a racket and still chewing the belt. I'm not too worried about it chewing the belt a little bit. It's a different pulley than what was on it, so it is just going to, you know, bed itself in. I don't want to hear that noise we heard the last time. Someone was commenting in the comments saying it's a very good starting engine. It is. The heater plug is only there for show. It's only there just to plug a hole in the air intake. Don't use it. Never really have had to use it. The engine's been fully rebuilt with a Betco engine kit. Diesel pump's been gone through very well. It's spill timed it. I've learned how to spill time on this tractor, so I've kind of got that fairly right. So it does. It starts excellent every time, and without even, you see some people pulling the throttle down up fully open to start it. I don't. I just literally give it anything just above tick over. Okay, it's quiet a little bit. That's good. I'm very happy with that, because I couldn't live with the noise it was making. It was making serious noise. Now, is it charging? So the cutout is when this goes into negative charge, it realises that negative means that it would actually be earthing through the dynamo from the battery and flatten your battery. And it's meant to cut out. So you see it go, you see it spring back to zero. I just want to see the revs that it cuts in at. Okay, so that is good. So we're not suffering with that annoying sound. Is it getting hot? No, it's not. When they're out of alignment, these pulleys can get very hot. When they get very hot, they can heat up the commutator and melt soldered joints. So very happy with that. Looks the part. I think anyone who knows their Fergusons, when they're walking past and they look in, you can nearly see the Lucas part numbers there, right in front of you. And what I like is the extra brass bits. It's all tying in with the brass bolts on everything. I like that. We even have a brass bolt down. I think we changed it here for my earth on my starter, which isn't original, but it's something that I add into them just to bring an earth to the starter. Down here, that's brass. So, and of course the mushroom air intake there as well. So we do have that little bit more brass there, and I like brass. I think brass is just classic. Brass is class. So brass nuts and stuff like that. I get excited about that kind of thing. As sad as it sounds, I really need to get out more often, but it's not. It's a bit hard in this weather. We had a storm last night, so we had to batten down the hatches. How did the guy for sure? So yeah, that's brilliant. I'm happy with that. Original part back on. It's doing what it's meant to do. It's quiet. So the next thing I want to do, and what this video is more so going to be about, because that is important, it's a kind of a rainy day job. If you have a dynamo and you can hear it making rattling sounds and you think it's something to do with alignment, do that I was doing there. Use the rear bolt loose to make the adjustments angle wise, and then tighten her up. What I want to do, because I did mention it in the last video, is that this wasn't throwing out just the right amount of charge. What they say roughly is guideline from a dynamo is about 13.8 volts. 13.8 volts. So we make the adjustment on this here. You have, now we'll go over to our workbench. Or as used to say in the cookery programs, here's one that I made earlier. Which one of these is open? Right. Lucas RB108 voltage regulator. This is your cutout here. Right, and as you can see what happened, this one is actually welded to it. Right, so something very bad happened and this got stuck on. So maybe that's not an ideal candidate for showing what is going on with these. Here is one that isn't welded, right? So this is your cutout here. As you increase the revs in your engine, this coil here starts getting charged up, and there's an electromagnet in there, right? And what it does is, when it gets strong enough, as your revs increase, watch them points there with this finger here. It slowly drags it, and that now is your ignition switch, basically, if you want to call it ignition, even though it's nothing to do with spark plugs. That is your charge on, right? When you let off the revs there, you've seen that the little arrow in that clock went back the other side of zero, and for a second it went back to zero. What that is basically this cutout switch doing its thing. As the revs decrease, the amount of electricity going into this coil decreases, and the electromagnet gets weaker, and the spring opens up that connection. So now there's no connection between your battery and the dynamo, because when there is a connection like that, if that was to stay like that for whatever reason, like you saw the other one there, it's welded to it, you're just going to flatten your battery. Your battery is going to earth through your dynamo, because it's metal into your block, back to your earth. It's going to flatten your battery. So that is your cutout, right? And we adjust that by loading that spring. There's a spring on that there. You can see it there. And that's keeping it open. So that the more you've that screwed in, the more revs you're going to need to get that magnet there charged enough to pull that plate down and to make that connection there. It's as simple as that. They call it a cut-out switch, right? But to be honest with you, the only adjustment you make on this is voltage cut in, really. This is not for adjusting your cut-out, this is for adjusting your cut-in, because all you can do is put tension on that spring. The more tension, the more revs is needed to actually make that connection. They're like a set of points. How you adjust the voltage cut-out is you actually bend that lower, I'm going to call them a point there, that lower contact, is that you actually get in with the snouty pliers and you bend him. That's actually how you adjust. This is the voltage regulator side here. And this is adjustable here as well. The more you tighten this in, the more charge it allows into the battery from the dynamo. The dynamo at certain revs is obviously, if you kept the dynamo going full whack all day long, it's going to keep putting out the same charge. It doesn't care. Your battery gets fully charged. This where this has to start kicking in. This thing should be working like a ball cock in a toilet. It's got to keep the cistern full of water. So the next time you flush the toilet, or in this case, the next time you want to start your engine, when you need that big surge of power, that it's got to realise that power is gone, and it's got to make that connection there, and that will allow. So this will be jumping up and down and all over the place, regulating. So that is what we are looking at when we look under our bonnet. And I take out them two plugs. We're going to be looking at regulator and cut out is what they call it. It's actually a cut in is really what you are adjusting with that screw. So I'm going to hitch up this electric voltmeter, digital voltmeter again. We're going to come back. We're going to see it was thrown out about 13.5. When you consider it is a 12 volt battery, charging at 1.5 volts above the battery isn't really going to go doing it much favours. Over time, it will slowly make the battery weaker. So I just want to turn it up to 13.8. Simple as that. So let's get this hitched up. Let's get the engine started. Let's get this dynamo thrown out 13.8 volts. First thing is I take this off. Little kind of a rubber lad there, and it exposes that yellow screw there. Right? Shin buckle has to in. Tight him in, and it's going to go throwing out more charge. Simple as that, right? Now it's going to be hard for me to show you me turning that and at the same time have in the picture this. So I'm just going to have that in the picture. We'll start the engine. See, our voltage drops when we start the engine. A bit more of a turn. I'm going to need a bit more of a turn. That is good enough. 13.9. Our dynamo, she's a Braccune. It's lovely and quiet. You can actually hear the engine. So it's worth doing that. Now, this screw takes tiny, on this particular ammeter, voltage regulator, it takes a tiny turn. You go turning that 40, like we'll say a quarter of a turn, it'll go up to 14 and a half volts like that. So tiny turn on that one anyway, it seems to be what works. So it seems to be bottoming out there at about 13.9 volts. So what I can also do, of course, is keep an eye on this. This is amps. This is an 11 amp system. Now, at one stage, I kept turning that up and turning it up and turning it up, and it wasn't charging great. I probably mentioned this in an old video. And then I changed the fan belt, and I pulled out my dynamo and I tensioned it, and I went for a 5 mile spin, which means another 5 mile home. Well, I gave it to my dad to bring for that spin, and by the time 5 miles was done in this yoke and we got to where we were going, the father said to me, it stopped charging, and I put my hand on it and I nearly burnt the hand off me. He said it was actually filling the gauge at 30 amps. So what happened was, I didn't realise for years that the fan belt was on it was too narrow. It was always on it, I just fitted it, and it never said, it was slipping and slipping. So much that it polished the pulley, and polished the inside of that pulley so much that it was literally slipping the whole time. And I, of course, was compensating by turning up the charge, trying to get more charge out of it. And then, of course, when I changed that just before the show, pulled out the dynamo, tensioned it up, gave it to my dad, that thing was thrown out savage power. So we've learned from our mistakes. You do all of this stuff first, and that's probably why I was going to make this video just about adjusting the charge, but this is actually the most important thing to do first. Make sure that your fan belt and your pulley and all of that is in line. It's not getting hot. Like, you want to make sure that this isn't getting red hot, because the one that used to be on that, I didn't realize until I started looking into it, it was red hot after, because the fan belt slipping it was friction and all of that. And of course, it's heating up the bearing, heating up the commutator, everything. It completely melted the commutator, all the solder joints. When I took off the back of it, there was a line of splashed solder. So look, live and learn. Get this stuff right, so you know that whatever your engine's turning that dynamo is the speed the dynamo's turning, and it's not slipping. And then you focus on your little boy in there, your voltage regulator. Now, some people will probably say, why do they have ammeter on these when it's voltage? If a voltmeter would be a lot better on these, because it would always be at least at 12. Whereas an ammeter, when this battery gets charged, amps is current, it's flow. When this battery gets fully charged, this will actually barely go past 0. Because why would it be thrown out charge when the battery's full? So you do sometimes think, something wrong, it's not charging. But then you realise, I've been driving down the road for 5-10 minutes, whatever, the battery's fully charged. And of course, as you've seen, this engine isn't particularly hard to start, so it doesn't take a whole lot out of the battery. So there are just a few little pointers. If you have a dynamo, I like dynamos. I don't like alternators on vintage yokes. I understand why people fit them 35s and 135s, completely understand it. Turn on your ignition light, your charge light on the dash, give it a rev, it goes out, means everything's perfect. You're getting savage charge. But there is no excuse not to have a dynamo. If you have a good dynamo and you have a good regulator, these little few pointers might just help you. You know, rainy day job, fit back on your dynamo and your voltage regulator if they're there on the shelf. I just think they look a lot better. So there you go. Adjusting the charge on Lucas dynamo and voltage regulator. There's different types of voltage regulators. The older type was something like this. They had bullet connections, or the gold belly style like this. Bullet connections. This plate pushes them in. Same story. You take that out and you adjust one for charge, one for cut out. What I had to do with this was just take off the cover to see which one was which. Your cutout will always be a fairly simple kind of a on-off, unless it's after going horribly wrong on this and it's after melting itself on. And your regulator side, as we showed us here. So that's what I do. I strip them down to refresh my memory. That's just a spare for my gold belly. My gold belly has an original Lucas on it. So if I am going to test this one today as well. Open it up and clean it up. I did open up both of these. Yeah, last night I actually tested these. I made up a loom and tested them, and I couldn't get one to work, so I'm going to keep trying till I get the right one to work, and this will be going into my 20Ds because this is a 1954 954. This one is I think it came off a late diesel. Yeah, it's a 1956, so 656. So obviously the 54 one would be the one that I would like to get working on my 20 diesel, because it is 54. So far it's just not happy, but we're not going to give up on it yet. Might easily show a video of trying to get one of them working and fitted and adjusted on this using those same principles. So Shinny on scale, that is it. So we'll leave it there for this. Try and keep it short and sweet, and we'll come back in the next one. Slán go fóill.